Happy holidays, Aspire leaders. Thank you so much for joining this week. Just real quick, an announcement. At the end of this episode, Jeff Gargas talks about a webinar called The Art of ISS. It's a free webinar and it talks about how to reconstruct your ISS room to make sure that it's not only trauma responsive, but a space where work is actually being completed. That webinar has already occurred, but you can still access it. So if you go over to the show notes, click on that link, it'll send you over to the Teach Better course section, where you can get that course and a bunch of other material for free. So make sure you're taking advantage of that, as it was such an impactful event. Now let's dive into the conversation as Jeff Gargas and I answer 3 questions for this episode, all surrounding the topics of combating negative communication and rebuilding relationships as we try to enhance our campus culture. Welcome back, everyone, to Aspire to Lead, where we will be discussing the visions, inspirations, and experiences from top educational leaders. My name is Joshua Stamper, and you can connect with me on Twitter or on Instagram at Joshua_Stamper. Happy holidays, Aspire leaders and Teach Better family. I am here with my good friend Jeff Gargas, and we are back for another monthly Aspire Mailbag, which we have vowed, Jeff, that we are going to do this monthly. We're going to make it our maybe New Year's resolution. Would that be a good way to describe that?
I like vow. Right? Like a New Year's resolution is something you stop doing at the end of January. A vow is for life.
For life.
It's till death do us part, my friend. So I like vow.
A scary thought.
I like
I might be retracting and going back to the resolution.
At what age does it get sad? If there's actually probably an age where it gets sad that we would still be doing it, but then there's like another age further along when we're so old that it becomes like adorable to the young people that we're still like that we're running a podcast. I think that the topics would change and we would talk about whatever it is that we wanted to complain about.
Diets and exercise.
That would be now. But when like I'm an old man and I'm like, I'm okay. It's like okay for me to like complain about the kids or something. And
sure, get off my lawn.
And then it would be fun, I think, if we were like, I don't know, mid-80s, Josh, and telling like old bad dad jokes on a podcast together, but still for some reason calling it the Aspire to Lead Mailbag episode.
Life goals, buddy.
We'll let your audience go ahead and exit out, and then we'll get to the show here. What is this, number 32 for us, you said?
It's 32. Yeah.
32.
I was, once again, going back and trying to find the number that we were on, but 32. It's been a good string.
Josh, I'm typically a pretty optimistic person, and I think I'm fairly positive. And I hope the people that listen to your podcast get that. And when they listen to all the other episodes, like they feel inspired to continue on their journey. But if I'm being completely honest, after 32 episodes of this nonsense popping in, if there's still 1 listening right now and 2 subscribe to your podcast, like y'all may want to rethink your life choices. I'm joking. I'm excited to be here.
We're moving on.
No more good friend. Let's get into it.
That
was way too much.
Folks that are listening to share this podcast with others.
Happy holidays. This is your gift. 2.5 minutes of nonsense before we actually get to anything valuable.
All right. So if you're new to the podcast and this is your first time with the Aspire Mailbag,
I'm sorry.
My good friend, Teach Better teammate, the COO and co-founder of Teach Better, Jeff Gargas, is with me. And we reach out to you, the listeners. I typically do that through Voxer, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. I need to probably expand it now to like Blue Sky and Threads.
You're putting it on Blue Sky now. Yeah,
I threw it on my Instagram story. So we try and find a lot of ways to reach out to the audience. But in the past episodes, we've typically answered, I'm going to say 3. I usually say 3 to 5, but we usually get to 3.
3 is probably the average.
Yeah, that's kind of the magic number of leadership questions. And once again, I've got 3. I mean, I kind of grabbed and pulled, Jeff. I'm going to be quite honest with everybody and transparent that I was kind of trying to get it in a category. So some that were related to each other. So I think this has, some good threads going through them. Yeah. If you're ready, we can jump right in.
Let's go.
Okay. So this one's for good friend, Dr. Amy Perez. She's amazing with special education. Her question is, what are some ways to successfully work with people who say one thing to your face, but may say something disparaging behind your back? And she's just kind of wondering what would be some helpful strategies to kind of work through that.
Wow. So I think my answer might go a few different ways depending on what disparaging means. There's obviously a level at which that gets to where the answer would change and become maybe something that needs to be addressed differently, right? If those things are like very derogatory or something of that nature. Disparaging, if it's someone that is nice to you responds to whatever, but then maybe to coworkers says things about you and stuff. There's something that I had a conversation forever ago in another life when I was running restaurants, actually, Josh, and was training someone to come up into leadership. And they had been an employee, and then they got into like the first level of like where you're quote unquote a manager at that point. And someone that they were friendly with, like he found out that these people were kind of chatting about him. I told myself, one of the things when you become in this position is like you are now one of the people that can make their life better or worse, which is sort of a thing that comes with the territory. I wish it didn't, but it does. And so there's a little bit of that where you have to understand that no matter how good you are at your job and no matter how good you build that thing, like you are still someone who controls something in their job, which makes you a quote unquote boss, which means they may say things a little different to their colleagues than they do with you. I've found in my experience that doesn't always mean that they mean those things. Sometimes they're playing the political game of getting along with coworkers, and it might be actually someone else who's bringing negativity. They bring it in. It also might just be the way that they vent, and it's not actually personal. It's just about the job. However, even with that, it still kind of sucks, especially when you find out and you're like, man, I really thought, I tried really hard. I actually do care about these people or this person. And I thought we had a good thing, and you might still do it. So I think the first part is just sort of that mental hurdle of like understanding that, and that it's typically not personal. It's typically not even about you, really. However, with that being said, I think it comes to, it sounds like these are all connected. I'm worried I'm going to say the same things over and over again. It really comes to the clear communication and transparency and that authenticity of when you're having the conversations with people, when you're having those, and you're talking to people, the authenticity of why you're having the conversations that are around building the relationship. Why are you trying to connect with them? Why are you actually visiting them? Being clear about what your intentions are, your expectations are, but also, having that flexibility to understand and create the relationship and the environment where they feel comfortable coming to you for things, because that will limit or at least lessen the things that they need to go talk to someone else about, which a lot of times might lead to these things disparaging to. Now, the reality is, Josh, in the world, there's some people that just are going to be that way, and there's not much you can do about it. The next thing that I would do that is a little more fluffy answer is, if this is a little more, when we're saying disparaging, a little more to the derogatory side and stuff like that, and less about just complaining, kill them with kindness. I know that's cliche, that's whatever, but like, that's what we have to do. Because again, some of this comes with the territory of being a leader. And if you're working on the authenticity, the clear communication, the building of the relationships, like truly for the right reason, outside of that, if that's not getting it where it needs to go, like you have to have the kindness in there at all times. So
yeah, I want to highlight just one thing that you said, which was expectations. I think a lot of it comes down to that. I think people in their mind, and obviously, like you said, it kind of depends on the situation. But I'm thinking like when I was trying to come up as a teacher to an administrator, I got called all kinds of things behind my back and sometimes to my face. And it was, it was negative. It was meant to be a dig. Really, I had to like do some soul searching of like, do I want to confront that, or do I want to just kind of slide off my back and just keep doing what I'm doing? Because I felt like my intention was good and as far as trying to help the campus, but at the same time, get experience and then learn how to be a leader on a campus. And so, for some people, the expectation was, it's not your time. I've been doing this for a long time. I've already gone through my master's program. I've already had these experiences. I should be the next one in line to get, an administrative job. And so there's a lot of competition on campus. Some people also had the expectation of, you're a young teacher. You've only been in the career for 3 years. Who are you to, now be sitting with the administrators having some type of decision about the direction of the campus? So there's a lot of expectations and norms that, for myself, I was breaking. So I heard, oh, you're the golden boy, or you're going the dark side, or, fill in the blank as to the name calling that occurred during that span. When you're an administrator, same thing happens, right? You make a decision that someone doesn't like. Well, their expectation was that would go a different way. And I can think of 1,000 times where I thought, like you said, a wonderful conversation where we had an end product at the end and everything was great one-on-one. And then they leave the office and then they go to a coworker and talk about how it was such a miserable meeting and how, they didn't get what they wanted based from that meeting. And it's like, that's the frustrating part, because I'm here. Just tell me.
If that, and that's that's where that authenticity piece comes in, right? Because in that moment, that particular example, they are not being authentic to you. Correct. They are putting on. And so there's a little bit of modeling here of like you being authentic, so that if they are not authentic, you have whether you choose to address or not, you at least have the I don't know, for lack of term, upper hand, leverage, moral high ground, whatever you want to call it. Like the fact that like, no, I am being authentic with this person. If they are now choosing to not be authentic with me, I can still continue to try to build a relationship better, maybe have the conversation, kill them with kindness, build whatever, but I'm going to continue to be authentic in my connection with them because I know that that's the right thing to do. If they still choose to not be, there's a point where it's on them, and you can continue to do the things that you are attempting to do in order to prove that communication and that relationship. But yeah, there's a point where it's tough. I wanted to say that also, like you mentioned the people like sort of saying, oh, like you've been here for 3 years, you're young, the level of backlash that I have gotten from people who don't feel that I deserve to do these mailbag episodes with you. I'm just joking. No, all jokes aside, that's totally a thing. And that's a real thing. I mean, of how did you get picked? And it's a crabs in a bucket most of the time, of, well, I wanted that and I didn't get that. And they feel that they think of all the reasons why. And that a lot of times that's a result of whoever it is that the leader is not being authentic with that person and tell them truly why they haven't got that opportunity. Right.
Yeah, totally.
But that's tough. So yeah, I don't know. I hope this helps, Dr. Perez.
Well, I feel like I want to transition to the next one because I do think there's a lot of similar elements.
So.
Yeah.
And
I think if they're not getting what they need maybe from the first question, I think there might be other pieces to question number 2 and question number 3.
I'm pretty sure the first 2.5 minutes of this episode got everyone everything they needed. So
if they're still
check
listening,
that box.
If they're still listening, it is a holiday.
If you are still listening, we love you. Like, even if it's because you're driving and you don't want to mess with the next button, we still really appreciate it. It's awesome. All right, what's our next one? All
right, so this one actually is anonymous, and I understand why. They texted me, so I'm gonna try and I'm gonna pull it up on my phone, kind of like the scenario here. So this person has an administrative team. One of the administrators, they had a disagreement, and so this person thought they had a compromise based on the disagreement, that both parties came together, made a plan, moved forward with it. However, the next day, this person got the silent treatment from this person. And so they were confused. Since then, there's been very minimal conversation. But obviously, as an admin team, you work in close proximity all the time. And so it's kind of weird. So they're looking for, just some strategies as far as like, because this administrator is new. However, they're sharing their opinion. They see there's things on the campus that need to be done, so they're not being silent about it, which is a little bit different than the following year. Now, as an administrator, they're taking more of a vocal stance on things. And I think maybe the other person is just not feeling that. So they're looking just ways to work through this conflict.
So they had a disagreement.
Yep.
This person thought, okay, it was a disagreement, but we figured out a way to make it happen. But then now the relationship clearly has been...
That was the perception, yeah.
Damaged in some way. Crazy. So I'd be curious. My first question to this person would be like, have you tried to address it? Which there's a million reasons why you may or may not, based on what the relationship was and all that type of stuff. But like, I would encourage you to consider it. Now, again, I don't know what their roles are either. So there's a little bit of obviously being careful with, the political
hierarchy,
whatever, and the hierarchy and stuff. But like, if it's possible, I would try to address it. It's going to be a super uncomfortable conversation, but bring it up saying, hey, I feel like we're disconnected. Like you're avoiding me, or you're not talking to me, or like that I did something. And I believe maybe it was the result of this thing. And, this conversation we had. And I apologize if I did something or I said something that left the wrong tone, because I felt like we got to a place that neither one of us really got what we wanted, but we figured out a compromise that was the best that we could get to there. And I thought things were good, and I feel like it isn't. And I just want to know, how can I fix this? And that person may or may not tell you, right? My gut says, and I don't know if this is fair, my gut says if this person's like just doing the silent treatment to you, that's not super mature. So like, there's a good chance the response to the conversation is also going to be they're just going to BS you and gaslight you, or just say, oh no, everything's fine. Like, but then go right back to it. So like, but that's one of those things I go back similar to what this is where I said it's going to cross over. Like, to me, it's a kill them with kindness, not fake kindness, but like just kindness, and continue to try and fix that relationship by having clear communication, not taking it personal, which is going to be really difficult, specifically not letting it come through that way. So continue to reach out to them the way you normally would. Josh, have you ever had that? I've never had that situation happen. So that's like a hard one for me to go through. I mean, I've given people the silent treatment.
I have too. Talking about the maturity thing. I'm
No.
probably not great on that.
No, I have not. You really have? Have you actually pulled that? Like,
Yeah. Actually, with my
now
principal.
now I need to know. Like,
Yeah, I have a
school time,
story
buddy.
that popped in my mind. It was actually with someone I've shouted out 1,000 times, and one that I just have the most respect for, which is Sanjay Pegram. She was my mentor and someone I worked with.
Swear I thought you were about to say me. And I'm like,
no,
then you said the respect piece, and that went out the window. Okay, so you're straight up naming names right now.
Yeah,
all right.
Sanja and I we're practically family.
We'll find out.
No, she's good. She's amazing.
She'll let me know.
So with her, like, she was my principal. I was the AP. So she made an executive decision on something, which wasn't in the pattern of what we had done in the past. I 100% disagreed with it. And as the leader, she went forward with it. And I didn't agree with it. I made it known. And then I was so upset that, it was probably a good day for me to kind of work it through in my mind. And finally, I got so upset about it. I literally walked into her office, shut the door, and laid it all out on the table as to why I didn't think it was correct, why I didn't think it was, something that we did in the past. And, talking about that clear communication, I really tried to keep my emotions out of it. However, that was extremely difficult because I was very passionate about the direction we should have gone specifically with this situation. So it was in regards to a student. And, I just tried to keep my emotions to a degree. I wasn't trying to be disrespectful, but I did want to be honest about how I was feeling, why I was feeling that way, and the direction I thought we should go moving forward. And thankfully, because Sanja's great, she understood, she took ownership of the direction that she was going. She shared why she thought it was the direction, but we did come to a compromise afterwards. And I think because of that, our relationship grew even better because we were able to be honest and vulnerable and open to each other in a really difficult conversation, in a really difficult situation that really didn't have a clear solution. It was complicated, as most things on a school campus are. Now, like what you were saying, I've also had, on the flip side, I've had people confront me about various things that are, equals, and try to hash it out. And I will say that it wasn't a very mature way of handling things that eventually turned into a broken relationship that was never mended. So that is a possibility, and I've seen that firsthand.
Yeah, and that's just, the reality is we're all human, so the emotions are there, and some people handle their emotions better than others, and even people who are super professional and have done well and successful have the absolute likelihood and probability of letting it get the best of them, and it can lead to something like that kind of destroys an area and stuff like that. So I really think it comes back to try to have the conversation, but obviously your specific situation, if this person's listening, you need to navigate how you feel is best. But I think the reason for not having a conversation should not be the uncomfortableness of it, the difficulty of it. If there's a risk to your job or something, that's make that decision correctly. But if not, this one, we kind of got to rip the Band-Aid off and have the conversation, because the longer it goes on, it's got potential to get worse.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
If this person has any control over things or influence over things, or is above you and has ability to give or take away opportunities, I'm not even going to go to the route of if they intentionally do that. They may unintentionally do that because you're in this weird, well, I'm not really I just try to avoid Josh because of that thing and whatever. That turns into, well, I'm just not going to think of Josh now either, because I just don't think about Josh because I just try to avoid him. Right. So there's a lot of things that come from that maybe won't even necessarily be that person's intention. So fixing it sooner than later for sure, if it's fixable.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Just find a time, obviously away from other people, that you're able to have, that crucial conversation. Jeff, I did want to highlight, I know we have a course in the Teach Better Academy. So I don't know if you want to share
that
a little bit about that.
That is with you and Aaron Healy. Yes. I don't have to pull it up. I think it's literally called How to Have the Difficult Conversations or something of that nature. It's all about difficult conversations. And I think you and Aaron did a really nice job on it, talking from the different vantage points and viewpoints of those conversations, depending on what your role is and position and stuff. So teachbetteracademy.com, you can grab that. And honestly, Josh, I don't remember if that's a free course or a paid one.
It might be a paid one. I feel like
if it's free, great. If it's paid, the reality is you can grab all of our courses for $9 a month. It's pretty cheap. So single courses are $49, but you can get them all for $9 a month. So
there's so many. There's so many courses.
There's 40 something in there at least. Yeah. And that one included. So awesome. that was a good one too. So that came out last year sometime.
It feels like a really long time.
Still
super
I do remember relevant. I promise.
Yes. Yeah, it is relevant, and it wasn't that long ago.
We got a third one too. That was the second one, right? Okay, we got a third one. All right, let's do the third one then.
All right, last one. This is from Dr. Martinez out in Illinois, wonderful administrator.
Yes.
He's asking, how do you address rejection after complicated decisions? So there's a lot of directions that we can go on this. But what are your first thoughts?
Are you reading that, Josh, as rejection meaning like rejection to the decisions?
That was
like
what I was
as a
thinking,
leader,
yeah.
make a decision that was complicated, it was tough,
Yes.
and now either some or all of my staff are rejected and going against it.
I mean, typically you're looking at always about 10 to 15% of your staff that's not going to agree with the decision.
Yeah.
Typically.
Chad a lot of times breaks this down. I can't remember when he'll break it down with clients of like what to expect, and I can't remember what the percentage is. And he's just using percent. It's not like research necessarily, but he's saying like 50% of your staff are just going to do things because they're just going to do it because they're good employees. In their mind, they're like, I'm going to do it. It's my job. I'm just going to get it done. Of the other 50%, you're going to have, he said, like, I don't know, it's half that are like, oh, I'll do it, but like I might just kind of, not do it really well, and I'll just do the minimum. Yeah. And then you're going to have like 25% that are going to not do it because they're just like, I'm not going to do it until you absolutely force me to. And then like 25% that are going to be like, I'm going to do this poorly so that you regret your decision. And so that's where my mind went with that. But I think, I think I'm going to go back. This is exactly what I thought was going to happen. I'm going to say the same thing. Clear communication is the key here. And I think even more so with a decision, like being really clear about how the decision was made and how you arrived at the decision, which depending on how complicated it gets harder to do. And what you did, like not just hey, it was these two decisions and this is what we decided on and here's the 3 reasons, but also like the process you went through to get there, right? We looked at this, we did this, we arrived here, and then realized this wasn't going to work. So then we talked about this option, but here's why that didn't make sense. And so eventually we got here. And I think honestly going also, and just to be clear, this is the decision we made based on what we could or could not do. And we understand that X, Y, and Z might not be our ideal situation in this decision that we made, but this is where we're at. And I think a lot of times where we fail as leaders to do is acknowledging the fact that that we know a decision might not be the favorite of everyone, and that you might not be happy about this, but I need you to understand the best I can communicate to you on why this is where we're at. You're still going to have whatever you said, like 10-15% that are like, you're the worst person ever for doing this.
Well, for sure. Well, and sometimes, like you said, you don't always have the autonomy to make the ultimate decision. I mean, there's some things that come down from the state or from the district that
sometimes you have crappy choices.
Yeah, like here are your 2 choices, and as an administrator, like I don't like either of those, but I have to choose one. It's it's like I don't have any room, and sometimes I'll be honest, I communicated this to my staff, like, hey, I know you think I'm the villain here for making the decision. Here are my 2 options that were provided to me by whoever the power that may be. And what would you choose? And like having them a part of the conversation of the end result. Sometimes you can do that. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes it was like an individual decision about like placement of a teacher for the next year. Maybe it was moving them to a different grade level, maybe a totally different subject. And like you said, explaining, and literally like sometimes it was pulling up the master schedule, the whole master schedule, and literally explaining to them as to where people needed to go and why allocations were where they were, and like breaking it down for them. And talk about a light bulb moment. People don't understand the complexity of a master schedule. And then when you provide that to them, it's like, holy crap. Like,
I can interrupt. That's something I was going to say, like, is that the reality of it, and it just is what it is that people who have never been in your shoes, wherever you're at in your leadership journey, whether you're, AP, principal, or up in the district, whatever, people that haven't been there or don't have any desire or never looked at it and don't understand, things can and decisions can feel much more black and white for them. It's the same thing if you look at, and we're not going to go to politics, but if you think about like people who criticize like the president, like and act like it's like this easy decision to make a decision for the entire nation, like it's just not. There's literally no easy decision ever.
No,
because there's so many things that even people who are highly educated on politics and government and world economics and all that also still can't fathom, right? Well, it's the same thing at your level. It's different things, but like you as a leader, you're dealing with a lot of stakeholders. inside and outside of the school, connected and not connected to the school. And then there's, all these different things. And the reality is some people are just never going to understand that. This is another one of those, like, it comes with the territory.
Totally.
It is what it is. And I think so. But I do think, to your point, opening those things up and saying, look, this is what I'm dealing with. While you were saying that, I was like, yeah, or like the 9-page document of the notes that you were taking and going through in your decision, stuff like of understanding, like, this is where I'm at. I actually do that even at a small level here on our team. When I would bring like a decision or thought to Chad and Ray, and I'd be like, hey, I would give a big, you've seen the big long Jeff task, but I'd give like, I would note it. I'd be like, hey, here's what I need from you, like, or the decision I'm making, or the 3 choices I need you to choose from. And then if you want, down below, I have all my scattered notes so you understand how I got to this. Or if I'm like, hey, here's numbers for you to see. I'm like, here's the notes of how I calculated that so that you have it. Because in some instances, people could be like, yeah, I trust you. Like, just, that's good. Let's do that one. Or I'm cool with your decision. But if they need to dig, having it available to them, to your point, open up and saying like, hey, here's the master schedule. Like, I'm not seeing it, so I had made this decision. Maybe you see it and I don't, and I can learn and be better. And I think that's the next piece is like listening to them though still. And processing the feedback the best you can to go, okay, I hear you. This decision's already made. It's too late. It's done. But I understand something. So actually next time, I think I might swing by Josh's room next time because I really actually appreciated the way he approached that. And I'm going to bring him into it, whatever. You know what I mean? So,
well, with the master schedule specifically, like I had a committee. I also met with all my teachers, like specifically about what are your expectations for next year? What are your wants? What are your needs? And then like, where do you not want to teach? Like what is like a non-negotiable for you? So like, I tried to like put all those pieces together. So then when we had to make the tough decisions and they came back, then it was like, okay, I took all of the things that you talked about, but I wasn't the sole decision maker here, right? I also took feedback from other spaces and like sharing out the process in which I made to that. But then like what you said, on the other hand, like when I made a decision and after I did get all these different components from all these different people, I was confident in the decision I made, So like, not to say that I wouldn't budge or move, but as an individual, I felt confident in the direction that we were moving in. And if we came to the table and they made some great points and I was able to make a different decision based on that conversation, then sometimes I would make it. But like, that was very little. Like for Dr. Martinez, like sometimes you make the tough decisions. People don't understand the direction you're going or see the vision of where the campus needs to go. And then a year later, they may come back and be like, oh, I get it now. I can think of that specifically with the admin team. We made a decision for the campus. We were kind of like a beta group, right? We'd always raise our hand for the district and say we'd take whatever initiative. And we literally took 3 initiatives in 1 year. And the staff complained, they were upset, too much on our plate. And we get that, it was a lot. However, COVID hit. When COVID hit and our staff had to, like on a dime, change everything to make it work for our students, they were able to do that. And it was actually easier for them to do that because the year prior was so difficult for them. And the things that we put in place actually with technology specifically is what I'm thinking of, was easier to transition to an online system for our students. And then when we came back from COVID, everyone else struggled around us. Our campus, our teachers felt comfortable and confident in what they were doing based on the experiences that were set up prior to. And they were like, I get it now. And so every initiative that we put down moving forward, they were more on board with it because they had experienced something prior to say, I didn't get it at the time. We experienced it. And now we understand why as an admin team, you pushed us to do this.
Yeah. And that's a great way of laying that out, because then it comes into like, at that point you've earned trust. So now the next decision is less likely to get judged because they're going to go, you know what? I don't know that I agree, but I trust Josh. That comes from that clear communication, the expectation. It comes from building relationships. It comes from authenticity. It comes from being real with them and admitting when you are wrong, taking feedback, showing that you put it in action, so that when you make these decisions and I disagree with you, I can go, you know what? I trust them. Let's see how it plays out. And then
and that's definitely where you want to get as an administrator, for sure.
Yeah. Good questions today.
Great questions. These were difficult. I mean, none of these are easy. I mean, just having conflict in general, especially with a staff member here, your boss, like none of that's easy. None of it's comfortable. But facing it head on, not putting your hand in the sand, not trying to ignore it. I mean, if you confront it, I think, we're talking about that reflection process. When you afterwards going through that, I think everyone's going to understand that there's growth there as an administrator, as a leader, and that on the other side of it, you're going to learn something. And the relationship may not get better, may get worse. However, I think the growth will always occur having that crucial conversation.
Agreed. Yeah, agreed.
All right, buddy.
100%.
I want to ask about the Teach Better team. So what's going on with Teach Better team lately?
Well, our biggest thing right now, this coming Tuesday, which will be December 10th, we've got a webinar, free webinar at 11 a.m. Eastern time, and it is with our friends over at the Art of ISS. And this is Jonathan's going to be breaking down 10 essentials for transforming the way that you look at and run your in-school suspension program, and to essentially change it from being the prison you send bad kids to, quote unquote, to a place where learning continues. So obviously there's points where sometimes kids need to be removed from the environment of the classroom. But too often they go and then that's their learning stops. They find it as a place where now they can escape. And what Jonathan and the work that he's doing with districts that they're seeing is that by transforming how we look at and how we run our ISS programs in that room, their return to ISS has plummeted, because the kids that were using it as an escape or saw it, it's no longer a thing. Now, obviously, there's still the issues that just can't be overcome, but it's going to be a really great webinar. We're excited to work with them. Jonathan's a member of our mastermind over in our educator community and wrote a book called The Art of ISS, and doing some really great work with districts based off the work he's done with his district. So we're excited to share it for administrators, obviously geared towards administrators, leaders, and or teachers and coaches that are overseeing or being a part of that program as well. So it's free. You can go to Mastering ISS Webinar. So teachbetter.com/Mastering ISS Webinar, free registration. And there is a recording, so you'll get the recording as well. So register, even if you might not be able to make it. We'd love to have you live, because we're going to have plenty of time for Q&A.
Nice.
So
he's awesome. Yeah, definitely. If you're
good dude,
interested, and this is a problem for everybody. I mean, I can't think of any school that isn't looking to improve this program. So definitely sign up. Even if you're, maybe you're driving, like, I don't know if I can even get a good reception or whatever, like sign up so you can get the recording later, because it's going to be very useful information. Anything else, Jeff?
I think that's it for me right now. That's the next big thing. And then just hopefully everyone has a happy holidays.
Yeah, for sure.
Get some relaxation in, hopefully.
So head over to teachbetter.com. Obviously, there's a ton of resources. We talked about the Academy, but there's so many other things on there as far as, the podcast network, blogs, things like that. Of course, if you need any support, Jeff and I are here for you, and you can reach out, obviously, through that website, or if you go to joshsamber.com, I'll have that link that Jeff was just referring to in the show notes for you. So it'll be easy to click on. And of course, we'll have all of our contact information and social media and whatnot for you to connect in multiple ways. If you're watching on YouTube, appreciate you. Hopefully you push that subscribe or like button. Also, if you have any future questions that you want Jeff and I to touch on, obviously you can throw that in the comments in YouTube, and we would love to address that in future episodes. Or you can reach out in social media just in general if you have a question, or like one person did this week, you can just text me. Some folks just do that. So appreciate all of you. Like Jeff said, hopefully you have a wonderful holiday season. And as always, buddy, I appreciate you so much. And thank you for joining me for Aspire Mailbag.
Always love being here. Here's to being 86 and still going.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at teachbetter.com/podcasts, and we'll see you at the next episode.